You are safe. Right now, in this moment, wherever you are safe. If you are in your bed, let the mattress hold you completely. Let every muscle you have been tensing, every part of your body that has been working to hold itself upright, or alert, or ready, let it go. You don't need to be ready for anything tonight. The day is done. Whatever it held, the noise of it, the demands of it, the people and the screens and the 1,000 small decisions that accumulated into the weight you carried into this room, all of that can wait. It will all be there in the morning, exactly as you left it. But right now, there is only this voice, moving slowly, only the dark behind your eyes, only the next breath coming in. Take one now, slow and full. Let your belly expand first, then your chest, then the very tops of your lungs, all the way to the collarbone. Hold it and release, long, all the way until there is nothing left. Good. Let's do that once more. Breathe in. Feel the air move. Feel your body receive it. Hold and out, slowly, all the way out. Now, let your jaw loosen. The muscles of your face, your forehead, let any tension there soften. Your eyes behind their lids, soft. Your neck, your shoulders, let them drop. Your hands are resting. Open your palms if you can. Let your fingers be loose and slightly curled, the way a sleeping hand naturally falls. Feel how the surface beneath you is holding every pound of your weight. You are being supported completely, without effort, the way the ocean supports everything that floats upon it. Breathe in and out. Tonight, I want to take you somewhere you have never been. Somewhere that almost no human being alive has ever witnessed with their own eyes. I want to take you to the open ocean, far from any coastline, where the water is so deep that the seafloor is 3 kilometers below the surface. And I want to show you something that is happening right now while you breathe, while the world sleeps, while the stars wheel slowly above the water. Somewhere in the cold, blue twilight of the deep Pacific, or the deep Atlantic, or the Indian Ocean, or the great Southern Ocean that circles Antarctica, something enormous is moving. Something so large that it creates a pressure wave you would feel before you saw it. Something so vast that its heartbeat can be heard by specialized hydrophones hundreds of miles away. The blue whale, Balænoptera musculus, the largest animal that has ever existed on Earth. Not the largest animal alive today, the largest animal that has ever lived on this planet in all of the 4.5 billion years of its history. Larger than any dinosaur, larger than the largest shark, larger than any creature that has ever walked the land or swum the sea or flown the sky. The blue whale is the maximum expression of animal life that evolution has ever produced, and tonight we are going to drift alongside it, in the dark, in the quiet, and we are going to learn its secrets. Breathe in and out. Let your body sink deeper into the surface that holds you. The ocean is patient, the whale is patient, and we have all night. Close your eyes and come with me. You are floating on the surface of the open Pacific. It is night. The sky above you is enormous and filled with stars, so numerous and so bright that the Milky Way is visible as a luminous band from horizon to horizon, not a smear or a suggestion, but something real and textured and ancient, stretching overhead like a river of light. The ocean beneath you is moving. Long, slow swells, each 1, 3 or 4 meters from trough to crest, rising and falling with the unhurried rhythm of something alive and breathing. You float on your back. The water holds you. Your ears are just below the surface, and you can hear something extraordinary, a sound. Not a sound you process with your mind immediately. A vibration, a low, slow pulse of pressure that seems to pass through your chest more than your ears. It is deep, profoundly deep. Deeper than the lowest note of any bass guitar or cello or pipe organ. It sits at a frequency below the range of normal human hearing, in the infrasonic register, below 20 hertz, but you feel it. Your body feels it. The water transmits it perfectly. It is a blue whale calling. Somewhere nearby in the dark water below you, a blue whale is producing a sound that will travel across the entire Pacific Ocean, a call so powerful, 188 decibels, louder than a jet engine at close range, and yet so slow and low that we barely perceive it as sound at all. A message travelling thousands of miles through water, meant for other whales. You are floating in the middle of a conversation you cannot quite hear. Breathe in and out. You slip below the surface. The stars disappear. At 10 meters, the world becomes blue. A rich, warm, luminous blue, the colour of shallow, tropical water on a sunny day, but quieter. Night blue, lit only by what filters down from the stars and the faint phosphorescence of the surface organisms disturbed by your movement. The temperature drops slightly, but not alarmingly. The Pacific here, in the open ocean far from any cold current, is warm near the surface. 20 degrees Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit. Beneath you, the ocean goes deeper than you can see, much deeper, and somewhere in that depth, moving upward toward the surface to breathe, as it must, every 20 to 30 minutes, for it is a mammal and must breathe air. The blue whale is rising. Breathe. You feel it before you see it. A change in the water, a deepening of the pressure from below. Something enormous displacing an enormous amount of water. And that displaced water arriving at you as a gentle but unmistakable wave of pressure. And then, in the blue dark water below you, something appears. Not all at once. The blue whale does not appear all at once because it is too large to appear all at once. First, the rostrum, the long, flat, U-shaped head, different from any other whale's head in its distinctive shape, like a broad, flat platform. Then the dark body behind it, materializing out of the blue, and materializing, the body of the blue whale as it rises past you toward the surface seems to take an improbably long time to pass. Because it is 30 meters long, 100 feet. The length of 3 full-size school buses, the length of a 10-story building laid on its side. The body is not blue. It is dark slate grey, mottled with lighter patches, with a faint blue cast in certain lights that gives the species its name. It is covered not in scales but in skin, smooth, rubbery, perfect, with a texture that seems almost architectural in its smoothness, broken only by the barnacles that sometimes attach near the head and the small parasitic whale lice that live in the skin folds. The pectoral fins extend from the sides, each one 3 to 4 meters long, narrow and pointed, and swept back like the wings of a very slow aircraft. And then the dorsal fin, small, absurdly small for an animal this size, a small curved triangle set far back on the body, almost at the tail. And the tail flukes, 6 meters wide, 20 feet from tip to tip. Wider than most houses are tall, the flukes sweep upward as the whale breaks the surface just above you, and the sound and physical sensation of 150 tons of animal breaching. The water-air interface is something you feel in your chest, in your throat, in your hands. But then silence. The blow. A column of warm, moist, slightly fishy-smelling air erupting from the 2 blowholes on top of the head. Not one blowhole, as many whales have, but 2 in a column that rises 9 meters into the night air. 9 meters. 3 stories. The blow of a blue whale in daylight can be seen from a mile away. Here, in the dark, it catches the faint starlight and disperses into the night air like a slow, warm breath, like a sigh. Breathe in and out. The whale has surfaced. It rests at the surface for perhaps 2 minutes, breathing. Several blows. A long pause between each, and then it rolls, and the head goes under, and the back arcs gently, and the dorsal fin cuts through the surface, and then the tail flukes rise, and those 6-meter flukes rising briefly above the surface, and the whale dives. You follow it downward. As you drift alongside the great grey body, let me tell you what you are looking at. The blue whale's heart weighs 450 kilograms. That is the weight of a small car. It is the size of a small car. It beats approximately 8 times per minute at the surface, compared to 72 times per minute for a resting human. During a deep dive, the heart rate slows further, to as few as 2 beats per minute, conserving oxygen, managing the physiology of a breath-hold dive in a body that weighs as much as a loaded tractor-trailer. 2 beats per minute. Breathe that in for a moment. 2 beats per minute. 2 beats every minute, pumping blood through vessels so large that a human child could crawl through the aorta. The tongue of the blue whale weighs approximately 2,700 kilograms, the same as a full-grown elephant. A single organ, soft and muscular and pale, weighing more than an elephant. The brain of the blue whale weighs approximately 7 kilograms, heavier than a human brain, though proportionally quite small for an animal of this size. But brain weight is not a reliable measure of intelligence in cetaceans. What the blue whale's brain lacks in proportion, it may compensate for in the complexity of its long-range acoustic processing, its ability to receive, interpret, and remember the calls of other whales across oceanic distances. The lungs hold approximately 2,500 liters of air. At each breath, the blue whale exchanges roughly 90% of its lung volume, compared to about 15% for a resting human. This extraordinary efficiency allows it to reload its blood with oxygen so completely that it can dive to depths of 500 meters and remain submerged for up to 35 minutes on a single breath. Breathe in and out. Your breath, compared to the whale's, is quick and small and light, but it is yours. And in the rhythm of it, in the slow, deep, patient rhythm that you are settling into. Now there is something that connects you to this animal beside you. You are both breathing. You are both warm-blooded. You're both mammals, descended from the same common ancestor that first evolved warm-bloodedness and live birth and mother's milk. The ancestors of the whale were four-legged land mammals approximately 50 million years ago. They walked. They lived near rivers. They ate fish from the water's edge. Over tens of millions of years, through an extraordinary sequence of evolutionary changes documented in the fossil record, they returned to the sea. Their front legs became flippers, their back legs shrank and then disappeared. Their nostrils migrated to the top of their head. Their tail broadened horizontally, unlike fish, whose tails are vertical. 50 million years ago, the ancestors of the blue whale were something like a dog, small, terrestrial, standing on the shore, and the ocean called them back. 100 meters. The blue whale dives with a gentle, powerful undulation of its entire body, not a frantic swimming motion. More like a slow, vast wave, moving from head to tail, the flukes driving downward with each stroke with a force you cannot estimate but can feel in the water around you. The pressure is at 10 atmospheres, 147 pounds per square inch. The blue whale feels none of this. Its body is built for it. Its bones have a slightly different composition than land mammals, with higher water content, making them more flexible and resistant to the bends. Its myoglobin, the oxygen-storing protein in muscle tissue, is present in concentrations 9 times higher than in human muscle, giving whale muscle its characteristically dark red-brown color and its ability to store enormous quantities of oxygen for the duration of a dive. Breathe in and out. The blue whale is not going deep tonight. 100 meters is deep enough for what it came here to do. It is here to eat. Because despite its extraordinary size, despite being the largest animal ever to have existed, the blue whale feeds exclusively on some of the smallest organisms in the ocean. Krill, Euphausia, Superba, and related species. Small shrimp-like crustaceans, 1 to 6 centimeters long, that form vast aggregations in the cold, nutrient-rich waters of the world's oceans. A blue whale eats approximately 40 million krill per day. 40 million every single day. It accomplishes this through a feeding method called lunge feeding. The whale accelerates, opens its enormous mouth. The mouth can open to 90 degrees, wide enough to swallow a vehicle, and engulfs a volume of water equal to its own body weight in a single lunge. The water rushes in. The pleated, accordion-like throat pouches expand enormously to accommodate it. Then the whale closes its mouth partially and pushes its massive tongue forward, forcing the water out through the baleen plates that hang from the upper jaw like a great curtain of overlapping fibrous strips. The krill, too large to pass through the baleen, are trapped and swallowed. In the summer feeding grounds, a blue whale can complete this lunge feeding cycle once every 30 to 40 seconds, for months, without stopping. It consumes the calories it needs for an entire year in just a few intense months of feeding. Breathe. 200 meters. The whale has turned upward now, beginning the long, slow return to the surface. It will breathe again, and then dive again, in the patient repetition of a life measured in breaths and dives and the slow crossing of ocean basins. But before we follow it back up, pause here for a moment. At 200 meters, the light from above is just barely perceptible. A very deep, very faint blue, no brighter than the darkest night above the water. And in this near darkness, something extraordinary is happening. The blue whale is singing, not in the way you might imagine, not a pretty melodic song, not the haunting, complex vocalizations of the humpback whale with its long, creative phrases that change from year to year. The blue whale's song is something altogether different. It is a series of precisely timed pulses and moans at frequencies around 14 to 40 hertz. Below the threshold of human hearing in most of its range. But in water, at these frequencies, the sound travels with extraordinary efficiency. The blue whale's call can travel up to 1,600 kilometers through the ocean. 1,600 kilometers. That is the distance from New York City to Dallas, Texas. Another blue whale, anywhere within that enormous circle of ocean, can hear this call, can recognize the individual, can respond. Blue whales maintain contact across ocean basins. They know where other blue whales are. They coordinate in ways we are only beginning to understand, their movements and their migrations. But there is something troubling here, something that should be named. The blue whale's song has been getting lower in pitch over the past several decades, all across the world. Every population of blue whales studied in the North Pacific, the North Atlantic, the Southern Ocean, the songs are getting lower. Scientists are not entirely sure why. One hypothesis: the whales are singing more quietly because the ocean is getting noisier. Shipping traffic, sonar, seismic surveys for oil and gas, the background noise of the industrial ocean has increased dramatically in the last century. The whales perhaps are adjusting their calls, lowering their frequency to cut through the noise more effectively. Another hypothesis: the whales are singing lower because there are more of them. When population density increases, longer, lower calls are more efficient for individual recognition. Both hypotheses have evidence for them. Neither is conclusively proven. The blue whale is changing its song, and we are listening, with equipment that didn't exist a generation ago, trying to understand what it is saying. Breathe, in and out. The whale breathes again. Several long, slow blows, each one a column of warm breath rising into the cool night air. And then it begins to move, not the feed-in lunges of a few minutes ago. This is migration. The blue whale is moving at cruise speed, approximately 20 kilometers per hour, with long, slow undulations of its body that eat up distance in a way that seems impossible for an animal moving at this pace. At 20 kilometers per hour, the blue whale covers 480 kilometers per day. It crosses ocean basins. The blue whale spends summers in high-latitude feeding grounds, the cold, nutrient-rich waters near the poles, where krill aggregate in densities so high that a single lunge can yield 500,000 calories. In winter, it migrates toward the tropics, to warmer waters where females give birth and whales mate. The migrations can cover 16,000 kilometers in a single year. 16,000 kilometers. The circumference of the Earth is 40,000 kilometers. Every year, the blue whale travels nearly half the circumference of the Earth. In open ocean, alone or in small groups of 2 or 3. Following signals we don't fully understand, the magnetic field of the Earth, the temperature of the water, the salinity gradients, the sounds of other whales, a life of vast distances, a life of cold and deep and dark and the endless horizon. Breathe, in and out. Your body's heavy now. Let it be heavy. Let your thoughts slow and drift, the way things drift in the open ocean. 300 meters. We are drifting here for a moment. In the relative quiet of the upper mesopelagic, the whale above us reduced to a shadow. There is something that must be said before we go deeper. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were an estimated 340,000 blue whales in the world's oceans. By 1967, when commercial blue whale hunting was finally banned under the International Whaling Commission, there were estimated to be fewer than 1,000. 340,000 to 1,000 in less than one human lifetime. The industrial whaling era, which began in the late 1800s with the invention of the explosive harpoon and the factory ship, killed blue whales at a rate their population could not sustain. They were not simply hunted, they were systematically eliminated. In the Southern Ocean alone, between 1904 and 1967, it is estimated that over 360,000 blue whales were killed. More blue whales were killed than existed at the start of the century. Think about that. The population was so large and the killing so relentless that they killed more than the starting population, which means they were also consuming animals born during the killing. The blue whale survived, barely. Today, the global population is estimated at between 10,000 and 25,000, recovered from 1,000. But nowhere near its historical numbers. And the ocean it returns to is louder, warmer, less certain in its currents. Breathe in and out. The blue whale survived everything we did to it. That in itself is extraordinary. The whale has dove again. 500 meters. The blue whale does not regularly dive this deep. Its maximum recorded depth is approximately 506 meters, not as deep as the sperm whale, which regularly exceeds 2,000 meters, but deep enough, and the dive we are on now is among the deeper ones, following a dense aggregation of krill that has been pushed down by the pressure of the day. 500 meters. The light is gone completely. The world here is black and cold, 3 degrees Celsius, 47 degrees Fahrenheit. But the blue whale navigates it easily. Its echolocation is not the precise image-forming sonar of the sperm whale or the dolphins. It uses low-frequency sounds primarily for communication over long distances, and its ability to navigate in the dark relies more on memory, on learned routes, on the magnetic gradients of the ocean, than on active sonar. It has been here before. Its mother brought it here when it was young, and its mother's mother. The roots of blue whale migration may be learned traditions passed from mother to calf over generations, encoding the locations of productive feeding grounds, safe passages, breeding grounds, in a biological library kept not in DNA, but in lived memory. Breathe in and out. 200 meters and we are rising with the whale again toward the surface. Let me tell you about the beginning of life for a blue whale. A blue whale calf is born after a gestation of 10 to 12 months. The mother, who has spent the summer fattening herself in cold water feeding grounds, migrates to warmer tropical waters as winter approaches. There, sometimes without any male present, she gives birth to a single calf. The calf at birth is approximately 7 meters long. 7 meters at birth. It weighs approximately 2,700 kilograms, almost 3 tons, at birth. The calf nurses on milk that is, by the standards of mammalian milk, extraordinarily rich, 50% fat by some estimates. The consistency of toothpaste. It cannot be suckled in the normal sense in the open water. Instead, the mother squirts milk into the calf's mouth using muscular contractions. The calf drinks approximately 600 liters of milk per day. 600 liters per day. And it grows. A blue whale calf gains approximately 90 kilograms, 200 pounds, every single day for 7 to 8 months, until it is weaned and alone, and approximately 16 meters long, and must now navigate the ocean independently. At 16 meters long, still a juvenile, still growing, full adult size, the full 30-meter length, the full 150-ton mass will not be reached for another 20 to 30 years. Breathe in and out. The blue whale lives for approximately 80 to 90 years, perhaps longer. The techniques for accurately aging blue whales are still being refined. 80 to 90 years in the open ocean, crossing and recrossing the same ocean basins, calling into the dark, listening. There comes a moment in the life of every blue whale when the blow does not come, when the great body, which has been surfacing and diving and breathing and migrating for decades, simply does not surface, when the calls stop, when the ocean receives one final exhale and then becomes quiet again. Death, for an animal this large in the open ocean, is not dramatic. There is no predator large enough to kill a healthy adult blue whale. There are no blue whale predators in the way we normally think of predation. Orcas, killer whales, occasionally attack calves or weakened individuals, but a healthy adult blue whale at full size and full strength has no predators. It simply ages, as all things age, and one day the diving becomes harder, the krill become harder to find, the energy stored in the thick blubber layer is consumed faster than it can be replenished, and the whale sinks, slowly, into the darkness below. And what happens next is one of the most extraordinary and haunting events in the natural world. Breathe. In and out. We are going down now, into the deep, to where the whale falls. The blue whale sinks at approximately 1 meter per second. 1 meter per second. Through 1,000 meters. 2,000. 3,000. The body descends through the water column, trailing pale wisps of tissue, shedding a cloud of organic particles that join the marine snow drifting down around it. At 1,000 meters, the light has been gone for many hundreds of meters. The body passes through the cold, dark water of the midnight zone, not invisibly. Even in complete darkness, the fall of something this large creates pressure waves, creates chemical signals, the breakdown products of tissue, the smell of a vast meal spreading outward through the water in invisible plumes. And the creatures of the deep begin to respond, breathe in and out. 2,000 meters. The whale has reached the sea floor. In this part of the Pacific, 2,000 meters is deep, but not the deepest. The bottom here is a plain of dark sediment, fine particles accumulated over millions of years, soft and undisturbed and inhabited by the sparse organisms of the abyssal floor. And now, very quickly by deep-sea standards, things are changing. The first arrivals are the mobile scavengers, hagfish, sleeper sharks, rat-tail fish. They arrive within hours. Drawn by the chemical plume that has diffused through the water column above, they come from distances we struggle to estimate. Hagfish in particular, those ancient, primitive, eel-like animals that produce extraordinary quantities of defensive slime, are well adapted to follow chemical signals to a carcass. The hagfish arrive in numbers, dozens, hundreds. They burrow into the soft tissue. They eat. Their lack of jaws, which might seem like a disadvantage, is actually ideal for this work. They tie themselves in knots to increase the leverage of their rasping bite, working through the blubber and muscle with efficient, unhurried persistence. A blue whale carcass, in this first stage, the mobile scavenger stage, can have some soft tissue removed within a matter of days. Days. For a body that weighs 150 tons. The ocean is efficient. Nothing is wasted here. Nothing at all. Breathe in and out. As weeks pass, the character of the whale fall changes. The mobile scavengers have moved on. The soft tissue is largely gone. What remains is the skeleton, massive, grey-white, still containing enormous quantities of lipids, fats, stored in the bones themselves. A second community arrives. These are the Enrichment Opportunists, species that specialize in colonizing nutrient-rich patches on the seafloor, polycate worms, crustaceans, starfish, small snails. They coat the skeleton in dense carpets of living organisms. The whale bones, which still contain fats, become a resource, a slow-release reservoir of energy in a part of the ocean where energy is the scarcest thing. Over months, this community thrives. A patch of extraordinary richness on an otherwise sparse seafloor, like a city that has grown up overnight in the middle of a desert. Breathe in, out. And then something even stranger begins to happen. Something that was only discovered in 1987 when a remote-operated vehicle exploring the seafloor off the coast of California stumbled upon an old whale skeleton and found it doing something that no one had predicted. The bones of the whale, stripped of their soft tissue but still heavy with lipid, have become home to anaerobic bacteria, bacteria that live without oxygen, breaking down the fats in the bone and producing hydrogen sulfide as a byproduct. Hydrogen sulfide, the gas that smells of rotten eggs, the same chemical produced by hydrothermal vents. And just as at hydrothermal vents, the hydrogen sulfide has attracted chemosynthetic bacteria, bacteria that convert it into energy, that use it as the base of a food chain that needs no sunlight. The whale bones are glowing with a faint white bacterial mat. And on and around this mat, the creatures of the vent ecosystem have arrived, Ossidax worms, called bone-eating worms. A species discovered in 2002 and one of the most extraordinary creatures in the deep ocean. Ossidax have no mouth and no stomach. They anchor themselves to the whalebone with a root-like structure that penetrates the bone directly, secreting acid to dissolve it. Symbiotic bacteria living within their tissues do the actual digestion. The worm is, essentially, a tube with root-like acid-secreting drilling organs where the mouth should be. Clams with chemosynthetic bacteria in their gills, mussels, snails, crabs. A miniature vent ecosystem established on the bones of a single whale. This sulfophilic stage, this chemosynthetic community, can persist for decades. 50 years or more. A single blue whale in death sustains a unique, complex, biodiverse ecosystem for 50 years on the seafloor. 50 years of life from one life. Breathe in and out. The ocean wastes nothing. The ocean takes the largest animal that has ever lived and turns it, over 50 years, into hundreds of species of organisms living in the dark. There is something in that which is very hard to put into words, something that feels, in the quiet of the descending mind, like a kind of reassurance. Everything becomes something else. Nothing is lost, only transformed. Breathe. Let us stay here for a moment. At 2,000 meters on the seafloor, beside these bones, it is completely dark. The temperature is 2 degrees above freezing. The pressure is 201 atmosphere. And around us, on and in the bones of the blue whale, a community of perhaps 180 species is living, eating, reproducing, dying. Ossidax worms bloom in pink-red clusters on the surface of the bones, dozens of species of them, each adapted to a slightly different niche on the carcass, a different depth of bone, a different stage of lipid availability. They look, from a distance, like some improbable garden of soft coral. The mussels, Eders, Modiolevis, and related species cluster in the crevices. Their shells are pale cream yellow, each one housing chemosynthetic bacteria in specially adapted gill tissues. Crabs move with their characteristic sideways precision across the bones, cleaning the surface of bacteria, competing with each other for position, carrying on the disputes of crustacean territory with the same intensity as crabs anywhere else in the ocean. Fish hover at the edges. Cusk eels, macrorids, feeding on the worms and the crabs and the smaller organisms, maintaining their position in the food web. In a corner of the ribcage, a pale, translucent octopus has made its den. Small, perhaps 20 centimeters across, waiting with the patience of the deep sea for something to come within reach. Breathe. In and out. The whalefall was described by one oceanographer as the deep sea's equivalent of an oasis, a patch of extraordinary richness in an otherwise nearly barren landscape. A concentration of biological activity so intense, so out of proportion with its surroundings, that it changes the local ecology for decades. It is estimated that in the deep ocean, natural whalefalls occur on average 1 per 1,000 square kilometers. Every 1,000 square kilometers of deep seafloor has, somewhere in it, a whalefall at some stage of decomposition. They are scattered across the abyss like beacons, like islands of life in the dark, connected, perhaps, by the larvae of the organisms that colonize them, larvae that drift in the currents, that travel from one whale fall to the next, that carry the genetic information of these extraordinary communities from oasis to oasis across the deep sea floor. The whale fall may be, for some species, a stepping stone, a way of crossing the inhospitable distances of the abyssal floor to reach the next vent, the next seep, the next concentration of chemical energy. The whale in death may be the bridge between life. Breathe. We have drifted deeper now, away from the whale fall, 3,000 meters, the abyss proper, 400 atmospheres of pressure, less than 2 degrees Celsius. The sediment here is extraordinarily soft. In some places it is meters deep, accumulated over tens of millions of years. A record of everything that has ever fallen from the surface, the shells of foraminifera, the silica frustules of diatoms, the teeth of sharks, the bones of fish, the ear bones of whales. The ear bones. Whale ear bones, called tympanic bullae, are among the densest bones in any mammal. So dense and so resistant to dissolution that they persist in marine sediment for millions of years. Marine geologists use fossil whale ear bones to reconstruct the history of whale populations, of ocean currents, of ancient sea levels. The bones of whales are in the sediment beneath you right now. Whale bones from animals that lived 50 million years ago, 20 million years ago, 2 million years ago. The record of cetacean evolution written in bone, preserved in cold, dark sediment, waiting to be read. Breathe in and out. Your body is very still. Your thoughts have slowed to the pace of the deep ocean, patient, unhurried, moving slowly through the dark, the way marine snow moves, the way the deep currents move, the way the memories of things drift. 4,000 meters. We have gone deep enough tonight. The whale fall is above us now, 2,000 meters up, still alive with its community of bone-eating worms and chemosynthetic bacteria and pale crabs moving sideways in the dark. The whale that was the largest animal ever to have lived is now a thriving ecosystem. Its bones have become architecture. Its lipids have become the energy source for hundreds of species. Its mass has become life. And somewhere above us, in the open Pacific, other blue whales are blowing in the night, their breath rising 9 meters into the dark air, their calls moving through the water at 1,500 meters per second, traveling toward other blue whales hundreds of kilometers away. The living and the dead, connected by the ocean, by the chemistry of life and death, by the patient, ancient system that the deep sea has been operating without human knowledge or observation for hundreds of millions of years. Breathe in and out. We are rising now, slowly, back through the abyss, back through the midnight zone, back toward the light that is still many hundreds of meters above us. And as we rise, a question forms. A question that sits at the intersection of science and philosophy, and the particular kind of wonder that the deep ocean produces in anyone who spends time thinking about it. Here it is. When a blue whale calls, and another blue whale answers, across 1,000 kilometers of open ocean, is there anything we would recognize as thought in that exchange? Is there anything we would recognize as relationship? as memory, as grief. Cetaceans, whales and dolphins are among the most neurologically complex animals on Earth. Sperm whales have been observed spending time near the bodies of dead companions in behavior that researchers have cautiously described as mourning. Orcas have been observed carrying the bodies of dead calves for days, even weeks, in behavior that seems to serve no practical function and that researchers struggle to interpret as anything other than grief. Humpback whales have been observed coming to the aid of other species being attacked by orcas, not just their own kind, but grey whales, harbour seals, and even a sunfish in what researchers are cautiously, carefully, controversially beginning to call altruism. The blue whale has a brain tuned to call across ocean basins, to recognise individual voices, to maintain relationships, if that is what they are, across distances and timescales that dwarf anything in human social experience. What is it to know someone across 1,000 kilometers of water? What is it to call into the dark and receive an answer from somewhere beyond the horizon? What is it to carry in your memory the roots of migrations your mother taught you, and her mother before her, and hers before her, going back 100 generations? We do not know. We are genuinely uncertain. And that uncertainty, that space where we cannot yet reach with our instruments and our conceptual frameworks, is one of the most interesting places in science right now. The blue whale may have an inner life that we would recognize if we could access it. Or it may have an inner life so different from ours that our categories of thought and emotion simply don't apply. We don't know. And that not knowing is an invitation to keep looking, to keep listening, with better instruments and greater humility and the understanding that the ocean, which was here before us and will be here after us, contains lives and relationships and forms of being that we are only beginning to understand. Breathe in and out. 1,000 meters. The light is still far away, but we are moving toward it. Your body is very heavy now, the good kind of heavy, the heavy of complete relaxation, the heavy of a body that has done its work for the day and is ready to release everything. Breathe in and let it go. 500 meters. The blue whale we followed earlier is somewhere above us, breathing at the surface, blowing, moving steadily through the dark water. It will be here long after tonight, long after this breath. Breathe. 200 meters. A faint blue appears above you. Not bright, not even close to bright, but real. A depth of darkness that has shifted very slightly towards something that might one day, many hundreds of meters higher, become light. Your breathing is very slow, very even. In, out, in, out. 100 meters. The blue is brighter here, just slightly. Your mind is quiet. The thoughts that were busy at the beginning of tonight have settled. The way sediment settles in still water, the way the deep ocean floor is made, layer by layer, of everything that once moved and has now come to rest. Breathe. 50 meters. Color returning now. Blues and deep greens. The bioluminescence of the organisms around you catching and releasing light in tiny blue-green pulses. Your body feels like it is made of warm water, heavy, soft, completely supported. In, out. 20 meters. The surface is visible above you, rippling, dark, with the faint, scattered light of stars passing through the water and breaking apart. You can see the underside of the world, your world. You are almost back, but there is no hurry. There is never any hurry. Breathe. You are at the surface, floating on your back. The stars above you, the deep below you, and your body resting in the boundary between them. You are safe, completely safe. The whale is out there, somewhere in the dark water, breathing, moving, calling. The whale fall is down there, on the seafloor, its community of strange, patient organisms living out their lives in the cold and the dark. Everything continuing, as it has continued for millions of years, as it will continue long after tonight. You have been alongside the largest animal that has ever lived. You have seen what life becomes when it ends in the deep. You have been reminded that the world is very large and very old, and full of lives being lived in ways we cannot easily imagine. Carry that with you into sleep, or let it go entirely. Either way, sleep is here. Your body knows it. Your breath knows it. In, out, in, out. The blue whale breathes at the surface of the ocean, 9 meters of warm breath rising into the night. And you breathe here, in your bed, in the quiet. Both mammals, both warm, both breathing in the dark, both home. Sleep. In, out, sleep. The ocean is there. It has always been there. It doesn't need you to watch it to continue. It will be there when you wake. Exactly as it is now. Patient, dark, alive, enormous. And the whale somewhere in it calling across 1,000 kilometers of dark water, waiting for an answer that it knows will come. Sleep. In, out, sleep. The largest heart that has ever beaten is beating out there in a dark, 8 times a minute, patient, slow. And yours slower now than when we started. Slower and slower. Breathe, sleep. Follow Unseen Ocean History for more deep ocean mysteries. The blue whale's world is not bounded by any feature we would recognize as a border. It has no territory in the way a lion has territory, or a nesting bird defines its area with song. It has feeding grounds, but even these are not fixed. The krill aggregations it depends on shift with the temperature of the water, with the upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich water from the deep, with the patterns of wind and current that change from year to year and from decade to decade. The blue whale lives in a world that is in constant motion. The surface of the open ocean is never the same for 2 consecutive days. Currents sweep across it. Storms build and pass. Upwellings bring cold water and nutrients from the deep. El Niño and La Niña shift the entire Pacific temperature pattern on decadal cycles. The whale navigates all of this, and it does so with a certainty that we, with all our satellites and ocean monitoring buoys and global weather models, cannot fully replicate. How does it know where to go? Some of it is learned, the routes of migration passed from mothers to calves. Some of it is sensory. The blue whale can detect changes in water temperature, salinity, and possibly the magnetic field of the Earth, which provides a kind of map of the ocean that changes predictably with geography. Some of it, perhaps, is social, the calls of other blue whales converging toward productive feeding areas, creating a kind of distributed intelligence that no single animal possesses, but that emerges from the collective. The ocean is not a flat, undifferentiated space. It is a landscape made of temperature and current and salinity and the chemical traces of living things. And the blue whale reads that landscape the way you might read a familiar neighborhood, with confidence, with the ease of long practice. Breathe in and out. 10,000, 25,000 from 1,000. The recovery of the blue whale is one of the most cautiously hopeful stories in conservation biology. After the 1967 ban on commercial blue whale hunting, the populations began, slowly, tentatively, to recover. The blue whale cannot recover quickly. A female does not reach sexual maturity until she is between 5 and 15 years old. She carries one calf for 10 to 12 months. She nurses that calf for another 7 to 8 months, and then she may wait 2 to 3 years before becoming pregnant again. The reproductive rate is slow. Even with full protection, even with no hunting at all, the blue whale population cannot increase rapidly, but it has increased. The California population, or the population off the coast of the western United States, has recovered to perhaps 2,500 individuals, estimated to be close to its historical size, given the available prey in that region. 2,500 whales moving through the waters off California, calling to each other in the dark, raising calves, learning the old migration routes from their mothers. It is not everything. The Antarctic population, which was the most severely impacted, is still estimated at a fraction of its historical size. Threats remain. Ship strikes kill blue whales annually. A whale cannot hear or avoid a large container ship moving at speed, and the whale's migration routes often cross major shipping lanes. Noise pollution may disrupt their ability to communicate and navigate. Climate change is already shifting the distribution of krill, making some historical feeding areas less productive. But they are here. They survived. And somewhere in the dark Pacific right now, a blue whale is calling. Breathe. Consider the mathematics of the whale fall for a moment. A blue whale that reaches full adult size contains approximately 150 tons of organic material. 150 tons of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and trace elements, all the chemistry of a living body accumulated over 80 years of eating 40 million krill per day. When that body falls to the seafloor, it delivers to a small patch of ocean floor more organic material than would normally arrive via marine snow in 1,000 to 2,000 years. 1 to 2,000 years of food delivered at once, in one event. The whale fall is not just an oasis, it is a time machine. It compresses centuries of productivity into a patch of seafloor the size of a tennis court. And in that compressed productivity, evolution has had time to produce extraordinarily specialized organisms. Organisms that exist nowhere else, that depend on whale falls as their primary habitat. Osedax worms, the bone-eating worms, are found only on whale falls. Certain species of deep-sea mussels are found primarily on whale falls and hydrothermal vents, with no known populations in the barren sediment between them. Their larvae must travel between these islands of productivity, must find them in the dark across the abyssal plain, must land precisely on the right substrate, must establish themselves before the resources are exhausted. The timing is everything. And they manage it, generation after generation. Breathe in and out. The fossil record of whales is, in many ways, the fossil record of the ocean itself. Because whales are large, and because their bones are dense, and because they fall to the seafloor when they die, whale bones appear throughout the geological record of ocean sediments in a way that the soft-bodied, deep-sea organisms never can. The teeth of ancient whales, the ear bones, the vertebrae, they turn up in oceanic sediment cores drilled for climate research in rock formations that were once seafloor in the coastal bluffs of places like California and Chile and South Africa, where ancient ocean sediment has been uplifted by tectonic forces. From these fossils, paleontologists have reconstructed the history of whale evolution with a clarity that would have seemed impossible 50 years ago. They have found Pachycetus, the four-legged land mammal that was among the first ancestors to spend time in the water, approximately 53 million years ago. They have found Ambulocetus, the walking whale, an animal adapted for both land and water, with partially webbed feet and a body plan intermediate between a land mammal and an aquatic one. They have found Rhodhoxitus, further along the aquatic pathway, with reduced hind limbs and a body shape that was unmistakably beginning to look like a whale. And they have found, in rocks from the Eocene, the first truly aquatic whales, animals that could not move effectively on land at all, whose hind limbs had reduced to useless vestiges, whose nostrils had migrated almost to the top of their heads. All of this in 50 million years, the blink of an eye in geological terms, but an extraordinary documented transformation from a dog-sized land mammal to the largest animal in the history of life on Earth. In 50 million years, breathe in and out. The blue whale, for most of human history, was invisible to us, not because it was small or rare, because we could not go where it lived. We lived on the surface. We built boats and crossed the surface and caught fish near the surface and occasionally glimpsed the blow of a whale in the distance. But the whale's real life, the diving, the feeding at depth, the long migrations through the open ocean, the calling across ocean basins, all of that was beyond our observation. We knew whales existed. We killed them in enormous numbers. And we barely knew anything about them. It was not until the development of underwater acoustics research in the mid-20th century that scientists began to understand that the ocean was full of whale sounds, that these sounds carried for thousands of kilometers, that individual blue whales could potentially be tracked by their calls. It was not until satellite tagging technology became available in the 1990s that we began to map the migrations of individual blue whales. It was not until the development of underwater drones and long-duration autonomous vehicles in the 2000s that we began to observe their feeding behavior in detail. We are newcomers to knowledge of the whale. And what we have learned in 50 years of serious acoustic and observational research has overturned almost everything we assumed we knew. The whale is not a simple animal, not a fish, not a mindless filter of the sea. Something is happening in the mind of the blue whale, something we don't have adequate words for, and the ocean is full of that something right now. In the dark, breathe in and out. Let that be the last thought before sleep. The world contains more than you know. The dark contains lives you cannot imagine, and out there, in the permanent night of the deep Pacific, something ancient and warm and enormous is breathing in the dark, just like you, breathing in the dark, safe, alive, home, sleep. Let's stay at the surface for a moment longer with the whale, watching it breathe, because the breathing of a blue whale is not a simple thing. It is a physiological feat of extraordinary complexity, refined over millions of years of evolution for a single purpose: to allow the largest animal ever to have lived to sustain itself on a single breath for up to 35 minutes. When the blue whale surfaces, its first act is a massive exhalation. The old air, depleted of oxygen, enriched with carbon dioxide, warmed to deep body temperature, erupts from the twin blowholes with a sound like a large valve being released. You can hear it from half a mile away, a deep, resonant whoosh that carries across the water. Then the inhalation, near instantaneous by comparison. The whale draws in something like 2,500 liters of air in a fraction of a second. Its lungs, which are proportionally smaller than a human's relative to body size, compensate with extraordinary efficiency. The oxygen is extracted from each breath at a rate 2 or 3 times higher than a human lung can manage. The hemoglobin in the whale's blood is adapted to bind oxygen more efficiently at lower concentrations. The myoglobin in its muscles stores oxygen directly in the tissue, meaning the blood doesn't have to ferry oxygen to the muscles at the same rate during a dive. The muscles simply draw on their own reserves. The blood volume itself is enormous. The blue whale has approximately 10,000 liters of blood. 10,000 liters. That blood, when the whale dives, is shunted away from non-essential organs in the digestive system, the periphery, and concentrated in the heart and the brain, the organs that cannot tolerate oxygen deprivation. The heart slows 2 beats per minute. The peripheral blood vessels constrict. The body goes into a kind of controlled emergency state, rationing its oxygen with a precision that no human physiologist studying these animals from the outside has fully mapped. And then, 30 minutes later, the whale surfaces and breathes. Breathe in and out. Your own breath is so much faster, so much smaller, but it follows the same ancient rhythm. Air in, oxygen to blood, carbon dioxide back to air, out. The chemistry of every breath you have ever taken has been the same chemistry as every breath the blue whale has ever taken. You breathe the same atmosphere. You carry the same ancient respiratory chemistry in your cells. You are, in the deepest biological sense, related to the largest animal that has ever lived. Breathe. The world of the blue whale is not one ocean. It is all oceans. Blue whales are found in every major ocean basin: the North Pacific, the North Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, and the Southern Ocean that surrounds Antarctica. They are divided into subspecies that occupy different basins, with different songs and slightly different body sizes. The Antarctic blue whale, the northern blue whale, the pygmy blue whale of the Indian Ocean, pygmy only by comparison, still up to 24 meters long. The largest blue whales are the Antarctic subspecies. The largest individual ever reliably measured was 33.5 meters long, 110 feet. The heaviest reliably measured was 190 tons. 190 tons. That is the weight of approximately 25 full-grown African elephants, the mass of a medium-sized office building, the weight of a Boeing 747 jumbo jet in a living animal, an animal that swims, an animal that surfaces and breathes and calls across ocean basins, an animal whose heart beats 8 times a minute and whose blood carries enough oxygen to sustain it for half an hour on a single breath. Breathe in and out. The North Pacific population of blue whales spends its summers feeding in the cold waters of the California Current, the upwelling system along the western coast of North America that produces some of the most productive marine waters on Earth. In winter, they migrate to warmer waters off Central America, Mexico, and possibly as far as Hawaii. In the North Atlantic, blue whales feed in the cold, productive waters of the Gulf of St. Lawrence and around Iceland. In the Southern Ocean, they feed in the waters around Antarctica during the austral summer, taking advantage of the extraordinary productivity of Antarctic krill. The Antarctic krill, Euphausia superba, are so numerous that their total biomass rivals the blue whale itself as the largest animal biomass on Earth. There are estimated to be approximately 379 million tons of Antarctic krill. 379 million tons. And the blue whale eats them at 40 million per day. The largest animal feeds on some of the smallest. This is not coincidence, it is strategy. Krill are extraordinarily abundant and extraordinarily rich in protein and fat. By targeting them exclusively, the blue whale can sustain its enormous caloric needs without competing with the other large predators of the ocean, the sharks, the toothed whales, the fish. It has found its niche at the most productive point in the food chain, one step above the primary producers, maximizing the available energy. Breathe. Let us follow the whale on one of its deeper dives tonight. A 400-meter dive, the whale has surfaced and blown 5 times. Its blood is saturated with oxygen. Its myoglobin is loaded. It rolls forward, arches its back, and the tail flukes rise from the water for just a moment, catching the starlight, and then disappear below the surface. 10 meters. 20. The whale accelerates gently on the descent, using its large horizontal flukes to drive itself downward. The motion is not frantic, not the explosive underwater sprint of a panicked animal. It is measured, purposeful. The undulation of the entire body, from head to tail, with each stroke of the flukes delivering an enormous force that moves the whale through the water with deceptive speed. 50 meters, the whale can feel the temperature changing around it, the thermocline, that sharp boundary layer where warm surface water meets cold, deep water, passes across its skin. The change is real and immediate, perhaps 5 degrees in the space of a few meters of depth. It does not slow. 100 meters. The light from the surface has diminished to a deep blue, not dark yet but dimming. The whale's eyes, positioned on the sides of its head, giving it excellent lateral vision but limited binocular vision forward, register the changing light. It is looking for krill. 200 meters, the light is nearly gone, and the whale can sense them. Not by sight now, by the pressure waves of millions of small crustacean bodies moving in the water. By the sound of them, krill make clicking sounds when they move their appendages, and in high enough concentrations, the sound is audible to the sensitive acoustic systems of a whale. The blue whale is homing in on the sound of its food. 300 meters. The cold is profound. 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. But the whale's core body temperature is maintained at approximately 35 to 37 degrees by a combination of metabolic heat and blubber insulation. The blubber, up to 50 centimeters thick in the most well-fed individual, is not simply fat. It is a complex biological thermal management system with a network of blood vessels arranged so that warm blood flowing out is cooled by cold blood flowing in, minimizing heat loss to the surrounding water. 400 meters. The krill. At 400 meters, the deep scattering layer is dense with them tonight. The whale opens its mouth. The momentum of the massive body, the sudden gaping of that enormous jaw, creates a pressure differential that accelerates the krill toward the whale rather than away. Some researchers describe lunge feeding as a form of suction, the whale generating a wave of inflow in front of it. In a fraction of a second, the whale's pleated throat has expanded to accommodate several 100,000 liters of krill-filled water. The throat pouch, fully expanded, is as large as the whale's entire body was before the lunge. The mouth closes. The tongue pushes the water out through the baleen. The krill remain swallowed. 500,000 calories in 2 seconds of feeding, and the whale begins to rise, breathe, in and out. 50 years is a long time. In human terms, 50 years spans generations. Children are born and grow to adulthood. Technologies rise and fall. The world is recognizably different at the start and the end of 50 years. For the whale fall community, 50 years is the arc of an entire civilization. In the first weeks, the mobile scavengers strip the soft tissue. The hagfish and sleeper sharks that arrived within hours have been and gone. The flesh is gone. In the first months, the enrichment opportunists colonize the skeleton. Worms and crustaceans and small snails crowd the bones in dense communities. The ecosystem is at its richest, most diverse, most energetic. In the first decade, the sulfophilic community begins to establish itself. The bone-eating worms sink their roots into the lipid-rich bones. The chemosynthetic bacteria spread. The clams and mussels arrive, settling on the hard ground provided by the bones. And over decades, 10 years, 20, 30, the lipids in the bones are slowly consumed. The chemosynthetic community shrinks as the resource is depleted. The bones become lighter, more porous, as the organic material is extracted. In year 40, in year 50, what remains is a scatter of grey-white bone fragments on the sediment, partially buried. The Ossidax worms are gone, their food source exhausted. The mussels and clams have died. The bacterial mat is sparse. But the sediment around the whale fall, enriched for decades by the rain of organic material from the decomposing carcass, still carries more biological activity than the surrounding plain. Even after the bones are gone, the whale fall's influence persists. The sediment remembers. In the chemistry of the pore water, in the population of bacteria, in the elevated productivity of organisms that depend on organic rich sediment. A whale falls, and 50 years later, the seafloor still carries the memory of it. Breathe in and out. This is what the deep ocean does. It is patient enough to remember. It is efficient enough to waste nothing. It is complex enough that a single life, even a life as large as the blue whale's, becomes, in death, a foundation for hundreds of other lives. And those lives will fuel other lives, and those lives will fuel others, on and on, in the cold, in the dark, for as long as whales fall and krill bloom, and the ocean breathes. Breathe. The blue whale's call has left the animal behind. It is traveling now. Through the water at 1,500 meters per second, 4 times the speed of sound in air. Moving outward in an expanding sphere of pressure, carrying the particular pattern of pulses and moans and infrasonic notes that is specific to this individual whale in this ocean at this hour. The call enters what oceanographers call the SOFAR channel, the sound fixing and ranging channel. A layer of water between approximately 600 and 900 meters depth, where the speed of sound reaches a minimum. Sound waves entering this layer tend to refract back into it rather than escaping upward or downward, trapped in the channel the way light is trapped in a fiber optic cable. Within the SOFAR channel, sound can travel for thousands of kilometers with remarkably little loss. Military submarines have known about the SOFAR channel since the 1940s. It was used to track ships and planes that had gone down in the ocean by having them release small explosives that would produce sounds that traveled in the SOFAR channel to hydrophone networks on the seafloor. But blue whales knew about it far earlier. Their calls are pitched and timed to travel efficiently in the SOFAR channel. Evolution discovered what our military engineers discovered independently. The deep sound channel is the best pathway for long-distance acoustic communication. And the blue whale has been using it for millions of years, before submarines, before sonar, before any human was there to hear, breathe, in and out. Somewhere in the Pacific, 1,000 kilometers away, another blue whale hears this call. It pauses. Its own calls fall silent for a moment. Then it responds. A slow, low, infrasonic answer traveling back through the SOFAR channel at 1,500 meters per second. A conversation in the dark, across an ocean, between two animals that may never physically meet, who keep track of each other across distances that would have seemed incomprehensible to the sailors who first named them. Breathe. The blue whale has lived in these oceans for roughly 4 million years. Its lineage is older. The ancestors of the blue whale as a distinct species trace back further. But the animal we would recognize as a blue whale in essentially its current form has been swimming these waters for 4 million years. 4 million years. In that time, the ocean has changed. Ice ages have come and gone, dropping sea levels by more than 100 meters and then raising them again. Entire ocean basins have reorganized as tectonic plates shifted. Currents have changed. The distribution of krill has shifted, and the blue whale has adapted. Not rapidly. Evolution does not move fast enough to respond to the speed of human-caused change. But across generations, over hundreds of thousands of years, the blue whale's behavior, its migration routes, its feeding strategies, have tracked the changes in the ocean with a fidelity that suggests either an extraordinary genetic flexibility or something like cultural memory passed through maternal lines. The individual whale does not know about ice ages. It does not know that its migration routes have been shifting for 4 million years. It knows what its mother taught it. It knows the feel of water that is colder here and warmer there. It knows the sound of other blue whales converging on a productive feeding area. It knows hunger and the satisfaction of lunging through a dense patch of krill. It knows the warmth of the surface water in the tropics where it was born. It knows the cold of the feeding grounds. This is what the blue whale knows, and it is enough. It has been enough for 4 million years. Breathe in and out. The surface of the Pacific at night is not what most of us imagine. We imagine darkness, emptiness, a vast black nothing. But the surface of the ocean at night is alive. Zooplankton rise from the depths as part of the daily vertical migration. Squid move to the surface to hunt them. Fish move to the surface to hunt the squid. Seabirds that were resting on the surface dive to hunt the fish. The night ocean is feeding everywhere, all at once. And in the middle of all of this, the blue whale moves. It does not need to feed at night, particularly. Its feeding is not timed to the dark. It feeds whenever it finds krill in sufficient density, which can be day or night. But at night, there is a stillness to the surface that is different from the day. The human boat traffic is lower. The acoustic noise from ships, which during daylight fills the ocean with a constant background of engine sounds and propeller cavitation, and the groaning of steel hulls, is slightly reduced. The whale's acoustic world is slightly quieter, slightly clearer, and its calls travelling through the dark water reach a little further. Perhaps this is why blue whale calling activity often peaks at night, or perhaps not. We are still learning. We are always still learning. Breathe in and out. Let your mind rest in that uncertainty, in the honest admission that the ocean contains more than we know, that the night is full of conversations we cannot hear, that the dark water is not empty but crowded with lives being lived outside the range of human observation, that the world, even this familiar world you have lived in all your life, is larger and stranger and more full of living than you usually have time to remember. Breathe. You are, right now, more closely related to the blue whale than the blue whale is to any fish. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a biological fact. You and the blue whale share a common ancestor, a small, furry, warm-blooded mammal that lived sometime in the late Cretaceous period, approximately 80 to 90 million years ago. That ancestor was nothing like a whale, nothing like you for that matter, but it was warm-blooded. It nursed its young on milk. It had a 4-chambered heart. It breathed air. From that common ancestor, two evolutionary lineages diverged. Yours moving toward primate forms and eventually human forms. The whales moving through a sequence of changes, a gradual return to the water, a redesigning of the basic mammalian body plan for aquatic life over 50 million years. The blue whale and you share almost all of the fundamental biological machinery, the same four-chambered heart, the same basic kidney architecture, the same immune system principles, the same fundamental neurological plan, the same method of reproduction, the same nurse and care parenting structure. You and the blue whale are, in the most literal sense, distant family. The deep ocean is not a foreign world inhabited by alien creatures. It is a world inhabited by our relatives. Some of them very distant, some of them, like the whale, surprisingly close. Breathe in and out. Let that settle into your body as you drift towards sleep. You are not alone in the dark. You have never been alone in the dark. The world is full of warm-blooded relatives breathing in the night. Some of them on land, some in the deep Pacific. All of them breathing, all of them alive, all of them tonight, in the dark, at rest, sleep, in, out, sleep. 40 million krill per day. Let us think about that number for a moment. A single krill, Eupausia superba, is roughly 5 centimeters long. It weighs perhaps 1 gram. It lives in the cold, productive waters of the Southern Ocean, feeding on phytoplankton, microscopic algae that bloom in the Antarctic summer, when the sea ice retreats and sunlight reaches the water. The krill feed on the sun, and the blue whale feeds on the krill. It is, in its most essential form, a food chain of 2 links between the sun and the largest animal that has ever lived. Sunlight, phytoplankton, krill, blue whale. 4 steps from the energy of a star to the beating of the largest heart on Earth. Breathe in and out. The phytoplankton that the krill feed on are themselves extraordinary. They are responsible for approximately half of all the oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. Half. The other half comes from land plants. But the microscopic algae of the ocean are invisible to the naked eye. Each one a single cell, collectively produce as much oxygen as every tree and grass and fern on land. Every other breath you take, you are breathing ocean air. Air made by organisms so small that a single teaspoon of ocean water contains millions of them. Breathe in, out. The krill feeding on the phytoplankton are themselves a keystone of the Antarctic ecosystem. Penguins eat them, leopard seals eat penguins, seabirds eat them, many fish eat them, and multiple species of great whale, blue, fin, sei, humpback, right, all depend on krill as their primary food source. The krill are the axis around which the entire Southern Ocean ecosystem turns, and the blue whale is the krill's largest predator. They are bound together, these 2 creatures separated by 8 orders of magnitude in body mass, tied by the simple chemistry of eating. When krill are abundant, blue whales grow fat and reproduce. When krill are scarce, when ocean warming disrupts the sea ice that the phytoplankton depends on, reducing the bloom, the blue whale feeds less, is thinner, reproduces more slowly. The fate of the largest animal is tied to the fate of something smaller than your thumbnail. Breathe. There are many whales in the ocean tonight. The blue whale is the largest, but it is not alone. In the waters of the North Pacific, humpback whales are singing. The humpback's song is very different from the blue whale's. Where the blue whale calls in infrasonic monotones of extraordinary power and range, the humpback sings a complex, evolving song of phrases and themes that changes from year to year. Male humpbacks learn each other's songs and innovate upon them, and a new theme introduced by one whale can spread across an entire ocean population within a season, transmitted from singer to singer the way a pop song spreads through a culture. The humpback is, in this sense, a cultural animal. Its song is not fixed by genetics. It is learned. It changes. It evolves. The fin whale calls at a frequency of 20 hertz, just at the edge of human hearing, just at the bottom of what a good sound system can reproduce. Its calls are regular, repeating pulses, the most precisely timed calls of any whale, and for decades they were detected by military hydrophone networks without anyone understanding what they were. The minke whale, smallest of the great whales at 7 to 10 meters, makes sounds so varied and complex, clicks, grunts, ratchets, boings, that it was known for years as the mystery acoustic source of the Antarctic. Scientists recorded its sounds for decades before they could confirm what animal was making them. Each whale species has its own acoustic identity, its own voice, its own place in the acoustic geography of the ocean, and all of them, blue, fin, sei, minke, humpback, bowhead, right, share the same ocean, the same krill-rich feeding grounds, the same warm breeding waters, the same deep sound channel through which their calls travel. The ocean at night is not quiet. It is a conversation of whales. Breathe in and out. We return to the whale fall. Decade 3. 30 years have passed since the blue whale's body settled on the seafloor of the North Pacific. The bones are still here, changed, but here. The great arching ribs, some of them 4 meters long, have collapsed partially inward as the cartilage and connective tissue that once held them in place has been consumed. The vertebrae lie scattered. The skull, massive, the rostrum alone 3 to 4 meters long, has partially buried itself in the sediment, its own weight pressing it slowly down into the soft, abyssal mud. But the Osedax worms are still here. 30 years in, they have consumed perhaps 70% of the lipid content of the bones. But they are still working, slowly, methodically, extracting the last available nutrition from the bone matrix. On the surface of some of the denser bones, the vertebral processes, the thicker sections of the skull, the bacterial mats still glow with their faint, white luminescence, still producing hydrogen sulfide, still supporting the chemosynthetic clams in the crevices. But the community has contracted. The peak biodiversity, that extraordinary 180 species community of the early decades, has simplified. Species that needed higher concentrations of sulfide or lipid have gone. What remains is a more specialist community, adapted to the lean conditions of a whale fall in its later stages. A single small octopus has made its home under the inverted bowl of a whale's skull. It may be the 3rd or 4th generation of octopus to occupy this particular shelter, a lineage of cold water octopuses that have lived beneath this skull in succession for 30 years. Breathe in. and out. There is something in that image that is worth sitting with. A whale dies, a skull settles on the seafloor, and for 30 years octopuses make their home beneath it, generation after generation. The whale persists in this small way, as shelter, as home, not remembered, not mourned, simply used. The ocean finds a use for everything. When the blue whale moves at night through the surface waters, it disturbs the bioluminescent organisms in the water around it. The dinoflagellates, single-celled organisms that flash blue-green when disturbed, light up in the whale's wake. If you were watching from above in a small boat on a moonless night, you might see it. A vast, dark shape moving through the water, surrounded by a halo of cold blue light, the shape of the whale outlined in bioluminescence, visible from the surface as a ghostly blue silhouette beneath the water. Ancient sailors saw this. They had a name for it. The merry dancers, or the sea fire, or simply something untranslatable in the language of their century. They must have seen, on their long ocean voyages, the bioluminescent wake of whales, the ghost light of the largest animal moving through the dark water, moving silently, glowing blue, breathe in and out. You cannot see it from where you are right now, but it is happening. Somewhere on the open Pacific, a blue whale is moving through the dark, and the water around it is lighting up. A brief, cold, blue fire, gone as soon as it passes, the ocean falling dark again behind the whale, as if the whale was never there at all, as if it were a dream. Breathe. Blue whales sleep. Of course they do. They are mammals. They need sleep as surely as you do. But sleeping, for an air-breathing animal that lives in the ocean, presents a challenge. If you lose consciousness completely, you might not surface to breathe. Cetaceans, whales and dolphins solve this problem with unihemispheric sleep. One hemisphere of the brain sleeps while the other remains awake. The sleeping hemisphere rests, consolidates memory, performs whatever restorative functions sleep performs, while the waking hemisphere maintains enough consciousness to continue breathing, to monitor the environment, to surface when necessary. The whale floats near the surface in a state of partial consciousness, one half of its brain dreaming while the other watches the dark. When enough time has passed, the sleeping hemisphere wakes, and the waking hemisphere rests. And the whale sleeps on, whole, without ever fully losing consciousness, without ever being fully awake, in a gentle, sustained twilight of partial awareness. Breathe. In and out. You are entering something like that now. Not asleep, not fully awake, in the borderland between, where the thoughts are becoming less certain, where the edges of things are softening, where the breath is slow, and the body is heavy, and the mind is somewhere between here and the dark water it has been imagining. Stay here. This borderland is where sleep lives. Breathe in, out. The whale is here too, one half of its great mind watching the dark water, the other half in the deep of something we cannot name. You and the whale in the borderland together. Breathe in, out. 8 beats per minute. Pause and feel your own heartbeat for a moment. Feel it in your chest, or in your wrists, or in the pulse at your temples if the room is quiet enough. Your heart is beating something like 60 to 70 times per minute right now, perhaps slower, drifting toward the rate of deep rest. The blue whale's heart beats 8 times per minute, and that heart weighs 450 kilograms, the largest heart of any animal ever measured. Each beat pumps approximately 200 liters of blood. 200 liters. At 8 beats per minute, that is 1,600 liters of blood per minute, moving through arteries so large that a child could crawl through them. Through a circulatory system so vast that the blood at the whale's tail is, in a sense, a different world from the blood at its brain, separated by a circulatory journey that takes seconds to complete. And yet it works. The oxygen arrives where it needs to arrive. The carbon dioxide is removed. The cells of this impossible body, 150 trillion cells or more, depending on how you count, are all metabolically sustained, all alive, all doing their particular work in the cold dark of the Pacific, while the heart beats 8 times per minute. Breathe in, out. The last thing, the very last thing before sleep. That heart is beating right now, somewhere in the ocean. Slow and certain and enormously powerful, 8 times per minute, while you breathe, while you drift, while the last thread of wakefulness loosens and the borderland opens wider and the deep becomes more real than the room. Sleep. The whale's heart is beating. In, out, 8 times a minute. Patient, ancient, real. Sleep. Summer in the Southern Ocean, the sea ice has retreated southward. Melt pools of clear water open across what was, a few months ago, a continuous white expanse. The sunlight, arriving at long, low angles that persist for 20 hours a day at these latitudes, penetrates the cold water and reaches the phytoplankton blooming just below the surface. The bloom. It is the event on which everything here depends. When conditions are right, the right temperature, the right nutrients carried up by the upwelling currents, the right light, the phytoplankton reproduce explosively. Their numbers can increase by factors of hundreds in days. The water turns green and then blue-green with their abundance. Seen from space, the bloom is visible as vast, swirling patches of colour in the grey-blue of the Southern Ocean. The krill have been waiting for this. They rise from their winter depths and begin to feed, sweeping the phytoplankton from the water with their finely structured forelegs, eating, growing, reproducing, their population swelling with the same explosive energy as the phytoplankton that feeds them. And from the north, the blue whales come, having spent the winter in the warmer tropical waters where they gave birth and mated. They have been traveling south for weeks, following the temperature gradients, following the calls of other blue whales converging from different directions, following the memory of seasons past. They arrive in the feeding grounds lean. A blue whale that has spent months in the tropics not feeding has consumed much of its blubber reserves. It arrives at the Antarctic krill grounds visibly thin by blue whale standards, the outline of its ribs slightly visible under the skin, the flanks slightly concave. And then it feeds. It feeds for 4 to 6 months. 40 million krill per day. Day after day. The blubber thickens. The body fills out. The whale's mass increases by tens of tons. The energy stored in that blubber will fuel the next winter's migration, the next season's reproduction. The whale is a storage vessel, a device for converting Antarctic krill into stored energy, which it will then transport back to the tropics and release over months as the metabolic cost of winter. Breathe in and out. The efficiency of this strategy is breathtaking. Spend summer at the poles where productivity is highest. Spend winter at the equator where reproduction is possible. Move between them with a body large enough to carry the stored energy of summer through the winter. The blue whale is the solution to a very specific geographical and biological problem. And it is a solution that has worked for 4 million years. Breathe. Let's talk about what the ocean sounds like, not to a human ear, to a whale. The deep ocean heard through the acoustic apparatus of a blue whale is not silent, it is full. In the low frequency ranges where blue whales operate, between 10 and 40 hertz, the ocean carries a constant background of sound. The grinding of tectonic plates, the rumble of distant underwater volcanoes, the crack of ice in polar regions, the long-period roll of distant earthquakes, the sound of ships, their propellers and engines contributing a continuous background rumble that has increased tenfold in the past 100 years. All of this is the acoustic environment through which the blue whale's calls must travel, the signal-to-noise problem. A blue whale in the North Pacific calling toward another blue whale in the Central Pacific must produce a signal powerful enough to be detected against this background noise across 1,000 or more kilometers of water. At 188 decibels, the blue whale's call is more than adequate. But the background noise is getting louder. Every decade, shipping traffic increases, the engines get larger, the hulls vibrate at frequencies that overlap with the blue whale's communication range. In some parts of the ocean during peak shipping hours, the ambient acoustic noise in the blue whale's frequency range has increased by 20 decibels since the 1960s. 20 decibels. That is a 100-fold increase in acoustic power. The blue whale is trying to communicate across an ocean that has become 100 times noisier. And it is adapting, adjusting its calls, finding ways to signal through the noise. But we do not know the cost. We do not know if the whales are reaching each other less reliably, if relationships are being lost across the noise, if the ancient conversations that carry migration knowledge and social bonds and the accumulated experience of whale generations are becoming fragmented. We are listening, with better instruments every year, trying to hear what the ocean is hiding. Breathe in and out. Memory. The blue whale must have it in a form that works across decades. A blue whale that reaches adulthood at 25 years of age and lives to 80 or 90 carries 60 years of ocean memories, 60 years of migrations, 60 years of feeding seasons, 60 years of encounters with other whales. What does a 60-year-old blue whale know that a 5-year-old blue whale does not? We cannot answer that question with confidence, but we can infer from the behavior of cetaceans generally. Long-finned pilot whales, which, like blue whales, have complex social structures and long lifespans, show evidence that older individuals serve as repositories of ecological knowledge for the group. When food is scarce, groups led by older individuals show less confusion, cover less unnecessary distance, find food more reliably. Sperm whale clans, matrilineal groups of related females, show cultural traditions in their dialects, their movement patterns, and their foraging strategies that are maintained across generations and differ between clans in ways that can only be explained by cultural transmission. If the social cetaceans carry ecological memory in their older individuals, is it unreasonable to suggest that a 60-year-old blue whale, one that has crossed the Pacific dozens of times, that has found the Antarctic feeding grounds in season after season, that has survived the decade-scale variations in krill abundance driven by El Niño cycles, carries a store of navigational and ecological memory that serves it well in lean years? We don't know. But the question is not unreasonable. The question is worth asking. With the humility that the ocean teaches, with the patience that comes from understanding how much we have yet to learn, breathe in and out. We are descending one last time tonight, not to the deepest places at all, just to the middle depths, 500 meters, where the whale fall is settling into its third decade, where the Ossidax worms are still working slowly in the cold dark, where the chemosynthetic community glows faintly with its own strange life, 500 meters. The pressure is 50 atmospheres, 735 pounds per square inch. And here, in this unreachable place, far from any human eye, the legacy of the largest animal continues. The bones of the blue whale are still here, still providing, still sustaining. This is what we came to understand tonight. Not just the scale of the living blue whale, not just the power of its heart, or the distance of its calls, or the beauty of its form rising through the dark water. All of that is extraordinary. But this is the heart of the story. This is what makes the blue whale, in a sense, the most important animal in the ocean. Its life feeds the krill. Its death feeds the abyss. Its bones become a city in the dark. Its blubber becomes the fuel for 100 species' lives. Everything it was, the enormous heart, the great rolling flukes, the infrasonic voice traveling across ocean basins, becomes, in the end, life. Just a different form. In a different time. In a darkness that doesn't distinguish between the living and the dead, that takes everything offered and turns it into something else, something necessary. Something that feeds what comes next. Breathe in and out. Sleep now. You have been in the presence of something very old tonight. Something that was here before us. Something that survived what we did to it. Something whose heart is still beating in the dark water right now as you breathe. 8 times per minute. Patient. Ancient, alive, sleep. In, out, sleep. You are made of the ocean, not metaphorically, chemically. The fluid inside your cells, the intracellular fluid that surrounds your organelles, that carries the molecules your metabolism depends on, has almost exactly the same ionic composition as ancient seawater. Sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, magnesium. in ratios that match with eerie precision the composition of the ocean in which life first evolved. Your cells remember the ocean. They carry it inside them. The blood that moves through your veins, carrying oxygen from your lungs to your muscles, carrying carbon dioxide back, is a kind of ocean. A contained, temperature-controlled, circulated ocean inside your body. When you cry, your tears are ocean water. When you sweat, it is ocean water. When your wounds ooze lymph, it is ocean water. You are, at a chemical level, a pocket of ancient ocean that learned to walk on land. And the blue whale, which went back to the actual ocean 50 million years ago, carries that same ancient chemistry. The same sodium and potassium and calcium in its cells, the same ancient ocean inherited from the same ancient ancestor, carried now in your body, carried in the whale's body, on land and in the sea, two expressions of the same original life. Breathe in, out. Let that be a comfort in whatever way it finds you. You are part of something very old, something that has been finding ways to continue in darkness and cold and pressure and warmth and light for 4 billion years. You are not separate from the natural world. You are the natural world, looking at itself, breathing in the dark. For tonight, sleep. Your breath is very slow now, very slow. There is a word in Japanese, ma, that refers to the space between things. The pause between notes in music that gives the notes their meaning. The empty space in a room that allows the furniture to breathe. The silence between words that makes the words worth hearing. The space between your breaths is growing longer now, ma. The pause between the in-breath and the out-breath, the moment of stillness when your lungs are full and have not yet begun to release. Hold it, just for a heartbeat, and then let it go. In, ma, out, ma, in, ma. The blue whale surfaces, blows, the column of breath rises, ma, and the whale rolls forward, the flukes rise, and it is gone, ma. The surface is smooth again, the stars reflected in the water, everything still. You are in the stillness between things, in the ma, in the pause between one breath and the next, in the space between the surface and the deep, between waking and sleep. Let the next thing be sleep. Let the out-breath carry you there. Out, ma, and do not breathe in yet. Let the stillness hold you. Let it hold you. Let it hold. In, out, sleep. The whale is deep now, moving in the dark, patient and enormous and perfectly suited to its world. You are in your world, perfectly suited to it, warm, held, breathing, sleep, in, out, sleep. The largest heart that has ever beaten continues 8 times per minute in the dark, while you sleep, while you dream, while the ocean continues as it has always continued, patient and full and ancient and alive. Sleep now. In, out. Follow Unseen Ocean History for more deep ocean mysteries. Scientists who study whale falls use the term whale fall to describe both the event, the sinking of a whale carcass, and the ecosystem that forms around it. But there is a third meaning, less official, that researchers sometimes use in conversation. A whale fall as a kind of category of place, an island, a refuge, a node in the network of chemical energy ecosystems that dots the deep sea floor. The distances between oases can be enormous. Hundreds of kilometers between one whale fall and the next. Hundreds more to the nearest vent. How do the larvae find them? We don't know precisely. They drift. They are carried by currents. And in the statistical reality of dispersal, some find their target and survive. Some fraction of all the larvae produced by all the individuals of these species find, in the vast dark of the abyssal plain, the chemical signature of a new oasis, and land and start again, life finding its way in the dark, always finding its way. Breathe in, out. The whale fall is not an isolated event. It is a thread in a web, a node in a network, part of a planetary system of chemical energy life that has been operating in the deep ocean for hundreds of millions of years, long before you, long before us, and long after. Breathe. The blue whale exists today in a world it did not evolve for. It evolved in an ocean without ships, an ocean without sonar, an ocean without the chemical residue of industrial processes dissolved in its waters, an ocean where the temperature changed only on geological timescales, not within a single lifetime. The blue whale alive today, the individual blue whale somewhere in the Pacific right now, breathing in the dark, has lived through changes that no blue whale before the 20th century ever experienced. The ocean it navigates is 2 degrees warmer than the ocean its great-great-grandparents navigated. The ocean it calls through is 100 times noisier in the low frequencies it uses for communication. The krill it depends on are increasingly found at different depths, at different times, in different places than they were a century ago, because the sea ice patterns that determine krill distribution are themselves changing. And yet, the blue whale adapts. Not rapidly. Evolution does not move fast enough to respond to the speed of human-caused change. But behaviorally, individual blue whales shift their migration timing, move their feeding areas, adjust their calling behavior. They are trying. With the tools that 50 million years of ocean life have given them, against the scale of what we have done. Breathe in and out. This is not a story of guilt or blame told here in the quiet as you drift towards sleep. It is a story of perspective. The largest animal that has ever lived is here, still here, breathing, after everything. After the whalers and the sonar and the warming and the noise, still calling across the Pacific. Still finding the krill, still raising calves, still beating its enormous heart 8 times per minute in the cold, dark water. The blue whale is still here, and that is something. That is, in fact, everything. Sleep now. Rest in the knowledge that the world is full of persistence, full of lives that keep going even when the going is hard. Full of enormous hearts beating steadily in the dark. In, out, in, out. Sleep. The blue whale's tongue weighs as much as an elephant. An African elephant weighs approximately 4,000 to 5,000 kilograms. The tongue of the blue whale, that pale, muscular organ that forces the water out through the baleen after every lunge, weighs approximately the same. An elephant's worth of tongue. And it is used to eat things smaller than your finger. The krill, each one a centimetre or two of transparent crustacean with black compound eyes and translucent body and small beating legs. A single krill weighs perhaps 1 gram. An elephant tongue catching 1 gram krill. The scale of the mismatch is difficult to hold in the mind, and yet it is the blue whale's primary adaptation. Not teeth, not claws. A tongue the size of an elephant and a filter apparatus. The baleen plates, the pleated throat pouches that turns this improbable piece of anatomy into the most efficient feeding machine in the history of animal life. Breathe in and out. There is something almost philosophical about the blue whale's feeding strategy. The largest thing eats the smallest things. The most powerful organism in the ocean depends on some of the most fragile. If the krill population collapses, as it has locally in some years due to warming water temperatures, the blue whale goes hungry. If the phytoplankton bloom fails, if the nutrient upwelling is disrupted, if the sea ice retreats too far too fast, the krill have nothing to eat, and the blue whale has nothing to eat. The entire system rests on the foundation of microscopic algae and the cold, upwelling currents that carry nutrients to the surface. The blue whale is enormously powerful and entirely dependent. Like everything that lives, breathe. Tonight, you have been down into the dark and come back. You have been alongside the largest life. You have seen what that life becomes when it ends in the cold and the deep. You have been reminded that the world is not small, that the night is not empty, that the dark water holds more than we can imagine, and that you are, in the most literal, biological, chemical sense, part of all of it, made of the same molecules, breathing the same air, descended from the same first life that stirred in the ancient ocean. Sleep now. You are part of the oldest story. And the oldest story is still going. In the Pacific, in the deep, in the beating of the largest heart, in your own breath slow and patient and moving in the dark, in, out, sleep, 80 years. If the blue whale lives to 80, it has experienced 80 summers, 80 migrations south to the cold feeding grounds, 80 seasons of the krill bloom, 80 winters in warm water, perhaps 15 to 20 calves, if it is female, each one 7 meters long at birth, each one nursed for 8 months on 600 liters of milk per day, each one taught, in those 8 months, the essential geography of the ocean, where the feeding grounds are, how to find the SOFAR channel, how to recognize the calls of other blue whales, and then released, alone, at 16 meters long, into the Pacific, to begin its own 80 years. Breathe in, out. 80 years for a blue whale encompasses a great deal of human history. A blue whale born in 1940, the year the industrial whaling era was killing them by the thousands, would still be alive today. Would have been alive through the ban on commercial hunting in 1967. Would have watched, in some biological sense, as the acoustic noise of the ocean increased around it, would have felt the water warming, degree by degree, over its lifetime. Would have found the krill in different places in some years than its mother had taught it to look, and would have adapted, would have survived, still calling, still diving, still beating that 450-kilogram heart, 8 times per minute in the dark. Breathe in, out. There is a reason we call them great whales, not just for their size, though the size is extraordinary, but for the span of their lives, the weight of their experience, the depth of their adaptation, the persistence of their presence in a world that has done everything possible to remove them. They are still here, calling across the Pacific 8 times per minute, and tonight, in the quiet, in the dark, in the slow rhythm of your own breath moving in and out, you have been alongside them. You know something now that you did not know this morning. You have been in the presence, however briefly and however imagined, of the largest heart that has ever beaten. Carry that, or let it go into sleep and find it again someday. Either way, it is there, in the Pacific, in the dark, patient, enormous, alive, sleep, in, out, sleep. There are moments in the open ocean when the wind drops, when the swells flatten, when the surface of the sea becomes something close to glass, a mirror. In those moments, rare and brief, and treasured by anyone who has been far enough from land to experience them, the ocean makes no sound at all. No waves breaking, no wind, no engine, just the very faint sound of your own breathing. And beneath the surface, transmitted upward through that glass-smooth water, the very faint, very low, infrasonic presence of whatever is calling down there. Not a sound, a feeling. The ocean is always calling, always full of signal, always carrying the voices of its inhabitants from one end to the other. We just cannot hear it. We are not built for it. The blue whale is built for it. It lives inside the conversation. It is the conversation. One voice in a network of voices that spans every ocean basin on the planet, a network that has been operating without interruption for millions of years. And if you were very still, stiller than you are even now in the borderland of sleep, and if the world were very quiet, and if you could somehow slow your own heartbeat and your own breathing to the pace of the deep water, you might feel it. Not hear, feel. The very lowest frequencies of the blue whale's call, below hearing, in the body. A faint pressure, a vibration, like a second heartbeat, coming from somewhere below everything, from the dark, from the Pacific, from the largest heart. Breathe in, out, sleep. The whale is calling. Across 1,000 miles of dark water, calling. And somewhere 1,000 miles away, another whale hears it and answers. And the ocean carries that answer back through the Sofar Channel, back through the cold and the dark and the miles, to a whale floating in the night, listening, not alone, never alone. The ocean is full